So that is why what we'll have to do is either you have to use compiler or you have to use interpreter or you have to use both, such as in case of Java. Okay, so either you will use compiler or interpreter or both, okay, to translate the high level language in written in 3GL to binary language. Is that fine? So here also we have to go through a process of translation to make the program understood by the computer machine. Okay, so that is all about the third generation language. Now we talk about the fourth generation language. So basically you see, we have seen starting from the low level language. So we saw that the languages started with the machine language, which is the the machine dependent language, or the machine language which is used by the machine. Then we moved one level upwards. We had the assembly language. Somewhere you will also get assembly language as the middle level language. Okay, somewhere you will get it as a middle level language, but however mostly it is considered as low level language only. Okay, so talking about the machine language, it started with machine language, then we moved one level upwards. Okay, so we moved one level upwards, that is so that the programmer can easily write it compared to the machine language. So if you see, we are moving upwards, so the level of abstraction increases here. Okay, level of abstraction increases means we are emphasizing more on the ease of writing, the how easily we can write a program. Okay, so we are moving away, gradually we are moving away from the system. Okay, first we were at the system, that is we were at the machine level, then we moved one level upwards, we used assembly language. Okay, then again talking about high level languages, we moved again one level upwards and we came to third GL, 3GL. Now we come to the fourth generation language, so another level of abstraction. So likewise, if you see, each of the programming language generations aims to provide a higher level of abstraction of the internal computer hardware details, okay, thereby making the language more programmer friendly, powerful, and versatile. Okay, so now talking about fourth generation language, they mainly operate with they operate more with large collections of information at once rather than focusing on just bits and bytes. Okay, so these languages actually support the database management, then report generation, mathematical optimization, GUI development, or web development. Okay, so basically, you see, talking about the fourth generation languages, they basically refer to the software packages, okay, which are mostly written in languages like Fortran C. So 4GL languages are mostly written in Fortran C and so on, okay, and they are meant for some specific applications. So many, some of the commonly used 4GL packages are the Fox Pro, the Oracle, the SQL database, okay, the MS Word that we use, then MS Excel, AutoCAD, okay, and so on. So these are some fourth generation languages which are basically used for purposes like data management, report generation, mathematical optimization, web development, GUI development. Okay, fourth generation language is also considered as non-procedural, okay, or program generating languages. Okay, now talking about the I spoke about some languages like Python, Ruby, Perl. So I said that these languages are the advanced third generation languages. Why advanced third generation? They come under third generation languages. Okay, but however, just let me mention them: Python, Ruby, Perl. Okay, then we have the MS Office, mainly the MS Word, MS Excel. Then we have SQL database, we have Oracle. There are many more, okay? So these are some fourth generation languages. Now, talking about these three languages, these are considered as a combination of fourth generation as well as third generation languages. So I'll copy paste it here also, okay? So these are actually a combination of third generation as well as fourth generation. Why? Because initially they were third generation languages, but however, they make use of many popular fourth generation language libraries. Okay, so they make use of this fourth generation language libraries. So that is why they are actually a mixture of fourth generation language and third generation language. Okay, the ones highlighted. Okay. Now, talking about the fifth generation language basically deals with artificial neural networks and artificial intelligence. Okay, so here the main, here we are totally using that language that we speak. Okay, whatever I'm speaking, whatever I'm saying, the language that I'll be writing, exactly that way we use this language. Okay, and we program the computer in such a way that anything the person speaks, anything the person writes, okay, the machine can understand directly. Okay, that is what we use in robotics, in artificial intelligence, yes, in machine learning, yes. So in these areas, the languages that we use, okay, like we have Prolog, we have Lisp. Okay, so these are some Mercury. Okay, so OPS 5. So these are some languages, 5 generation languages, which are mainly used in artificial intelligence. Okay, so that, you know, these languages are written keeping in mind that the computer must understand the language, human language, as they speak it. Okay, so just as I speak it, suppose I want to find something, say what is computer science. So if I type it in Google, okay, the Google will find it for me. Okay, so if I, so accordingly, likewise, you know, it will search all the relevant documents for me. Okay, it will retrieve all the information related to my question. So this means what? The computer can understand what the person has written directly without having written, without having needed to write the program for it. Yes, so this is what fifth generation language is all about. Okay, so we have spoken about all the languages now. So is it clear till here? Is it clear till here? Any doubts? Any doubts, anyone? So these were, okay. So here we discussed the various programming languages, okay, based on high level and low level, okay. Now we will talk about the different types of programming languages based on the design paradigm, okay, based on the design. Okay, so there are various programs. So all these languages that we have discussed so far, okay, so based on the design, how these programs are written, so based on the design, we can again categorize them into many categories. Okay, I have mentioned a few. I have mentioned only 3: procedural programming language, object oriented language, problem oriented language. Okay, so there are many as such, but however, we will discuss only about procedural programming language for your paper. Okay, because C is a procedural programming language, so we will only stick to procedural programming language. But however, you have to know that there are, depending on the design paradigm, there are many different types of programming languages. Okay, now we will only talk about procedural programming language. So let's start. Okay, talking about procedural programming language, first you have to understand what is a procedure. What do you understand by a procedure? When I say there's a procedure of doing something, so what do you understand by that? Procedure means there's a way. Okay, if you are to suppose yesterday I asked you to write an assignment, so I gave you some instructions. I told you the procedure of how to write how to do the assignment. Okay, so I told you from the very beginning where you will write your assignments, how you will upload it, okay, where you will upload it. So basically I told you the entire process, the entire procedure of submitting your assignment. Yes, so that is procedure. Procedure means function or task. Okay, so when we are focusing on how to do something, okay, when we are focusing on how to perform a task, given any task to us, that is called the procedure. Okay, so the language that we will be using is the procedural programming language. Okay, so in procedural programming language, which is also called procedural oriented programming, Okay, that is POP. So there are two ways of naming it. It can be used interchangeably. Either it is procedural programming language or POP, that is procedural oriented programming. So here basically our main focus is to perform some task. So we have to know how to perform that task. You have to know the logic behind. Okay, you have to understand the procedure, the process of, okay, if you are asked to say find the simple interest. Okay, so to compute the simple interest, you have to know the formula. Okay, you have to know how to compute the simple interest. So here you have to use formula, and based on the formula you will be finding values for what was the formula for finding simple interest. Simple interest is what? uh, Principal into rate into time by 100. Yes, so that is what simple interest is. And if you are to find the amount is principal plus simple interest. So if you are to find out the amount, okay, then you have to know that to find the amount I have to find out the simple interest first. Okay, and then I am to add the simple interest with the principal. Now to find the simple interest, I need to have a principal, I need to have a rate of interest, I need to have a time period. Okay, I will multiply each of them and then divide it by 100. So you have to design your approach towards solving the problem. Okay, so this is what procedural programming language does. We focus on the procedure of solving a particular problem. We try to find how we can solve a particular problem. Okay, so this is all about procedural programming language. It follows top-down approach. So I will come to this a bit later because the next topic is about the top-down approach only. Okay. The third point says the entire program is divided into functions. Okay. So here the entire program. So if you are given a program, okay, just as I gave you the example for simple interest, okay, you are to find the amount of interest. Okay. So I have asked you to write a program to find the amount of interest, okay, at the end of say 3 years for a particular rate of interest which is given to you and on a particular principal, okay, given to you. Fine. Now you are to find the amount. So this is your problem. Okay, I have given you one problem. So you have done all these in maths during your school days. Yes, in class 8, 9, you have done all this. You have done many different, complex mathematical work. Yes, so that is what it is all about. So here, just as in my example, so here what you will have to do, you have got the problem now, so you are to divide it. Okay, you have to break it because you know that directly if you think that okay, I'm to find the amount, that way you cannot solve it. You have to understand the different ways of solving, like you have to understand the different phases that you have to go through. First you have to find that out. So you have to find out the different phases. So you have to know that okay, to find amount I have to know the principal and the simple interest. I know the principal but I do not know the simple interest. Now I have to find the simple interest, and to find the simple interest I need to have PRT. Okay, and there might be a problem given to you where the rate of interest might not be given or the time might not be given. There might be some other dependencies in your program. So depending on the problem, you have to break it into subparts. Okay, and then you try solving the subparts. Okay, so here this is what we do. The entire program is divided into functions. So here we divide, given any problem to us, we will be given one single problem. Okay, we will be given one simple problem. Just as for example, again let me give you the example for say the student information system. Okay, you are to develop a student information system. Now just you cannot sit down, you got the problem, so you just cannot sit down with your laptop and you cannot start programming, you cannot start developing the program. You have to go through a what, you have to go through a design. First you have to design it. First you have to understand what are the things that will be involved in your application. Yes, you have to maintain student information. What type of information? You have to maintain students' personal information. You have to maintain students' registration information. You have to maintain the students' results. Okay, so likewise you will be designing, you will be dividing the problem. You have to divide the student information system into various parts, into various smaller parts. So one part will be taking care of the student's personal information. The second part will be taking care of the, say for example here, this is the student information system. So this is what I have given you. You have to build it. You cannot directly start from here. You have to break it. Okay. So what will you do is you have to understand that by student information, I'm talking about every relevant information of the student. Fine. So first, there will be the student personal details. So first you have to, okay, you will break the application, you will break the problem into multiple parts. Okay. So the first part will handle the students' personal information. Okay. All the students of your universities. So again, talking about all students of the university, there are various departments. Yes. So talking about the student personal information, now the students are not only from your class, it is for the entire university. So this system will be used by the entire university. So here again, depending on the various departments, so department wise, again, you have to break it down. So based on those departments, okay, now talking about iNurture. So iNurture is one department. Now inside iNurture, we again have various courses, like we have BCA, we have BSCIT, we have BSCIT MAS, BSCIT CTS, we have MCA, we have BTech. Yes. So again, inside iNurture, inside department, you have various what courses. Again, you divide them between the courses. Now, based on the courses, you have various batches. Then you come to the, okay, you come another level downwards. Now, based on those batches, you have to, you know, maintain the students' records batch wise. So if you see how I have started, you know, from the top level, okay, and I went on breaking the problem into various levels. Yes. First, I had the problem, okay, to make the student information system. Then I will break it into various parts. That is, first we'll manage the student personal data. Next, we will maintain the student's result. Next, we will maintain the students, registration, okay, whether or not, means whether or not they have paid their fees, okay, whether or not they have paid their fees, whether or not they have been promoted to the next semester, they have taken admission. So accordingly, so there will be various modules, there will be various subroutines of the problem. Now again, we have to break these various subroutines, okay, based on the requirement, because we know that we have to maintain record of the entire university. So talking about the personal information details, so we will be breaking it down into various departments. Okay, so say these are the two departments. Okay, so here we have iNurture and here we have civil department. Again, talking about the iNurture department, we have various courses. Okay, we will be having various courses. Okay, say let this be the iNurture department. So we have various courses. Say we have 3 courses here: BCA, BSc, and BTech. Okay, we have 3 courses. Now inside the courses, again we have to go for further breakdown. We will break it down further into various batches. Okay, because under BCA there are 4 batches. Under BTech there will be 4 batches. Okay, under BSc there will be 3 batches. So again we have to break it down into subparts. Then we can go on inserting the details of the students batch wise. So if you see the way we have broken down the main problem, the main difficult problem that was given to us into various subparts. So this is how procedural programming language works. And this process that I explained to you is nothing but top-down approach. Top-down means we will start from the top and we will go on breaking the problem into subparts. Okay, we will go downwards. Okay, so it will basically look like a tree. We go downwards, breaking the problem into subparts, and we go on breaking it until we get the lowest level using which we can easily program the application. We can easily understand and handle and manage the application. Okay, so this is what top-down approach is. And what is stepwise refinement? Because in every step, what have we done? So initially we had the difficult problem, then we broke it down. Okay, so what have we done? We have come one level downwards. So we are moving downwards. Okay, we are moving downwards the level of abstraction. Okay, so here what have we done? We have, again we will look at the various subparts that we have broken, okay, that we have obtained. Now we will see whether or not these sub modules can be easily handled. We find that no, this cannot be easily handled because the student, for maintaining student personal information, again we have to look at the various departments, because there are various departments under which the students study. So again we will be breaking down. Okay, now based on the department, again we will be breaking down on the number of courses the department provides. So at every level, what are we doing? We are simply looking at the various functions and we are deciding whether or not to go for further breakdown or not. Okay, so that means what are we doing? We are doing refinement. We are doing refinement of the steps. We are refining the steps. Okay, we are dividing, we are breaking down the difficult functions into comparatively easier functions, so that it can be easier for us to handle those functions and write our algorithm or program. Okay, so this is what top-down approach means. We are given a problem, we break it into various modules. If the modules are easy enough to handle, well and good. If not, we will again break it down. Okay, so likewise, by breaking down, we come different levels down, and finally at the last level we will be left with all the modules or all the sub functions that will be very much simpler, easier to understand and manage. Okay, so ultimately it is the last modules, the last sub modules that we will be getting. Those modules are to be programmed. Okay, so this is how we move to solve procedural programming language by making use of top-down approach and stepwise refinement. Have you understood top-down approach and stepwise refinement?
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone, any doubt?
Yes, ma'am.
I think the example was easy, clear? The diagram, yeah. Okay. The rest, please respond. There are many students who does not respond. Girls, Rinki, and who else? Priyanka. Question, buji paisa ne nai? Ne aru kiba doubt ase? Only 2 girls are present today.
Ma'am, bujisu.
Okay, fine. So that is what procedural programming language is all about. Okay, so we emphasis on doing things. So as I said earlier, that we will focus on how to do the thing. Okay, and procedural programming languages include C, Pascal, Basic, Fortran, COBOL, etc. Okay, so these are some examples of procedural programming language. Here we will be only discussing about C. Okay, so C is one type of a procedural programming language. So when you will be using the C language, then you will understand how we are making use of procedures here. Okay, so basically you have to only remember that procedural programming language deals with procedures. Okay, we deal with how to solve a particular problem and how do we approach by using top-down approach and stepwise refinement. So we will be given one problem, difficult problem. We have to assume that the problem is a difficult one, a complex one. We will be going on breaking it into sub-modules. We will check if the sub-modules are easy enough to program. If not, we will again break them down into further sub-modules. Okay, then again we will check. So finally the process will continue until we get very easy sub-modules that we can easily handle and program. Okay, so that is all about top-down approach and stepwise refinement. Okay, so here again we have a real life example. Okay, this is again a very easy example. See, to demonstrate the top-down design. Okay, say you have been given a problem to make pancakes. Okay, so but saying that by itself isn't enough to actually make any pancakes. We need to break down the task. Okay, so you have been asked to make pancakes. Okay, now given the task, you cannot directly come up with the pancakes. Okay, so you have to break your task. You have to break it into parts. First, you have to understand what are the things that you will have to do, the process that you will have to go through for making the pancake. So accordingly, we will be going through 3 different processes. One is we have to first organize the kitchen. Okay, we have to make the kitchen ready to make the pancake. We have to make the microwave, okay, the ingredients ready. Then we have to make the pancake. Okay, you have to start once everything has been set accordingly, your ingredients are ready. Okay, if not available, you have to go for shopping, you have to buy it from the market, and then you come back home, make your microwave, just heat up the oven as much as the heat before the, according to the temperature required to make the pancake, and so on. Then you start making your pancake, and after you are done making your pancake, you are to serve it to your guests. Fine. So here, simply given this problem is not, you cannot find the solution. You have to understand what are the processes involved in doing this task. So here we will be going through three different steps, three different stages. Okay. So first, again, now talking about organizing the kitchen, here we again have the various steps that you have to go through for organizing the kitchen. Okay, each of these tasks can be broken down. So see, this is your difficult problem that has been given to you. Then the first problem has been divided into three sub modules. Okay, so these are the three sub modules.